Okay, we're going to be doing incidents and awards. So the way we're going to do this now is I'm going to break it down section by section and how to fill out each section. It's really important that when you are filling out an incident report, if it's your first time or if it's been a while, to refresh yourself and to play this video so that you can become familiarize yourself or refamiliarize yourself with the how to in each section. Okay, so the first thing is internal ID. There is no such thing as an internal ID here. You're going to go right to incident date. You click on the little calendar icon. It automatically defaults to today's date. If today is the 12th, so it defaults today's date. Note that if you are writing an incident report that for an incident that happened the day prior, you're first getting a chance to write it the next day. Be very mindful that you select the appropriate date. Okay, so if there's an incident that happened late last night and I'm first going to do the incident report today, I have to choose the night before. Okay, so just be mindful of that. Pause and think about it. You never rush through an incident report. Don't ever rush through it just to get it done. You want to make sure you're carefully documenting this because somebody else is going to be reading this and reviewing the content, so it's really important you take your time. Okay, and that's with anything that you're documenting. But when it comes to an incident report, if it's an actual UIR, it's going to the state. So be very mindful that we're just taking our time writing this out. Okay, let's pretend it was today's date. Incident time. Note the way they want you to have it. Hours, minutes, AM or PM. So incident time. Note that the hour is in 2. So if it's not 11 or 12, 10, 11, 12, if it's like 1 through 9, you have to put a 0 in front of it. So let's say this was 0, right? 0, 9, 0, 0, AM, 9 a.m. Incident time. Incident location. This is not the location of the program that you're in. This is the location of where the incident actually occurred. Okay, so if the incident occurred in the kitchen, the living room, the hallway, the bathroom, the living room, wherever it actually occurred, that's where you're going to document it here. Okay, so we're going to say kitchen. Incident type. Okay, we're going to pause here and really look at this. I'm not going to go through each and every single item here because you guys can read this and kind of get a good sense. I don't want this video to be 20 minutes long, so we're not going to go into every single one. But there's some things I need to point out. All these instances you see here, all the top ones here, and the ones below here are all non-reportable incidents. So again, from resident member refuse to eat meal or snack all the way up to medication administration error no effect all the way down are non-reportable incidents, but we still want to have them documented. Okay, we also have one that says UIR filed. That means it's a UIR, it has to go to the state. Therefore, we need to make sure that we are documenting this appropriately, and we do not want you to select a code. It's just UIR filed. The UIR coordinator will then take the contents of the incident and put it in an actual UIR document and send that to BDD, UIR department. So if it's an actual UIR, don't worry about the code, just hit UIR filed. Again, all these other ones are non-reportable incidents. One thing I need to point out is SR. You see SR throughout here, right? SR just means service recipient. That is a resident or member. Okay, if you're in the residential program, those are our residents. If you work at the Waste Center or any Waste Center related program, that's a member. But that's what a service recipient is, somebody who's receiving services. Okay, now, a couple other things. You can actually have a code that sounds pretty relative, even though it is a UIR, right? So body skin mark, or even PRN administered. Sometimes those codes kind of go along with another code because an incident can have 2 codes. can actually have a Daniel's Law medical and give a PRN. Someone has a really high fever to the point where it's really scary, and you're calling 911, you still want to give them a PRN to bring down that fever, right? But it's a Daniel's Law, therefore it becomes a UIR filed. Okay, anytime it's a UIR, it's always UIR filed. Secondary codes could be added later, but really that would be a UIR filed. Now you can have a PRN administered that's not a UIR. That's when you would select the most appropriate. The other thing I need to point out is when we first opened up the incident type automatically defaults to PRN administered. When you first log in here, you're going to see that's the first one. Let me explain this. This is the most common internal incident report that we have, and therefore that's why that's defaulted there. So just be mindful that you are actually taking your time and you're selecting the most appropriate type. Okay, again, become familiar with the list here. Okay, we're going to just use a PRN administered example. Okay, now we're going to go to participants. You have residents, employees, and other. Other is only used for somebody who's not in the system. Okay, so residents, these are all the residents that are in the fake program. And employees, these are all current employees in our system. Okay, go through that really quick. So, other, again, is anybody who's not in the system. So you don't put your name here. Now, you can have an incident that involves more than 2 members, and sometimes more than 2 employees. Put the top 2 in first. Then once we're done filling everything out, we're going to hit save, and then we're going to go back to data entry, and it'll give you options to add more. So you're not filling out the 2 here and then adding names here. We're not doing that. This is only for people who are outside of JSTD. Okay, if you had a relative that was there on site, if you had a case manager there, anybody who's there that's not an employee, who is not in the Foothold system, who was there during an incident, that's where you're going to document. Now, these are participants, not witnesses. Okay, the difference is you either are a participant or you're a witness. You cannot be both. Okay, so let's pick some fake people. PRN administered. Let's just do 1 person because it'll only be 1 person. Let's say Donald Duck. For the purpose of training, I'm going to say that we gave 3 people a PRN. Let's say we gave 3 people a PRN. 3 people who are just not feeling well. We've had a pretty hard day. So now, even though I'm now saying we have 3 people, there's only 2 residents I'm selecting. The 3rd one will eventually show up later on. I'm going to show you that. Employees, I'm just going to say that Trainer Awards had administered and myself. Okay, there was no other people there. Witnesses, these are people who were witnessed it but had nothing to do with the incident. They were not a participant. Okay, it is perfectly feasible to not have any witnesses. That's fine. You don't have to fill something out here. It's not a required field. So if there were no incidents, you leave it blank. If there were an incident, you'd fill this out. Incident notification. Here, this report was filed outside of JSTD. If filed externally, the following fields are required. So now you'll note that there was an incident here that said, incident occurred outside of JSTD. That's the code you would use then, right? Because it's not a reportable incident for us, but it's something we were informed about. Sometimes something that happened outside of JSTD becomes reportable, but if it's outside of JSTD, I want you to select this. Incident occurred outside. Because it's not our incident, we would call it in to make sure that JSTD would be aware that an incident occurred. It's not our responsibility at UIR though. Okay, so that would be incident outside. Continue with PRN med. So if it was outside of JSTD, you got a phone call and you were informed of an incident. That's when you would select here, and you would put your name here, person notified at JSTD. You would put your name here as the person receiving that information. If this was not outside, which clearly this was not, who were the people that were notified of this PRN administration? So let's say I had to report this to our medical staff, and I reported it today. Let's say that I also had to report this to our residence coordinator. I would put that in there as well. If there's a guardian, if a PRN had to be administered and it was a level where you had to report this to a guardian, that's where you would also put that person's name too. So let's say we had to call, let's say Carol Kane is her own guardian, but let's say Donald Duck is not his own guardian. All right, and so I called Richard Duck, guardian / parent. And since there's two people involved, I'm going to indicate it was for Donald Duck. Guardian parent for Donald Duck. Okay. Now, incident description. What happened, including injuries, if any. Now, in previous videos, you see that I talk about this line. I can drag this and make it bigger so I can really take my time here. Now, this part is not to be rushed. You know what happened because you were there. Everybody around you knows what happened because they were there, right? You have to write this for the reader. The reader was not there, so you have to write exactly what happened as it happened so that the reader gets a good concept. Okay, it's really important, again, that we do not rush this information. We take our time. So let's say Donald Duck and Carol Kane were complaining of a headache. Staff awards trainer administered the OTC PRN medication as prescribed to Donald Duck. Tylenol, 325 milligrams, 2 tabs. And so what I might do here, I might then just do a line there so that it indicates what I gave. And then I'll do a semicolon and ibuprofen. Whether I didn't spell that right. Ibuprofen. I know PRN is going to be wrong because I don't recognize PRN, but ibuprofen. I'm not sure what the milligram dosage is for that, so what's normal? So I'm just going to use the same 325 milligrams, 2 tabs. All right, and put here for Carol Kane, ibuprofen, 325 milligrams. Okay. Staff, or I'm going to put here the note writer, because I'm the note writer. Check the mark after administration, and then check on Donald and Carol after a half hour to see if the medication effect have provided relief of their headaches. Both Donald and Carol stated their headaches, oh, I guess that's one word, their headaches were gone. Both Donald and Carol stated their headaches were gone. PRN OTC was effective. This was documented by awards trainer on MAR. Okay, I'm not going to write note here. What I was going to say is note the 3 locations. Now, you know, if you're giving a PRN, you're writing on the front, the back, and on the critical logbook that this medication was administered, right? So just reminder of that. So that tells me everything here, okay? Apparent causes, headaches, immediate measures taken within 24 hours, administered, PRN, OTC, medications as prescribed for headaches. So that's nice. So headaches. Okay, so I've given a full description, not just, hey, administered PRNs. That would not be a full description. Gave Donald Tylenol. That's not a full description. A full description is telling me everything that happened. Donald Duck and Carol Kane were complaining of a headache. Staff awards trainer administered the OTC PRN medication as prescribed to Donald Duck. Tylenol 325 milligram tabs, 2 tabs. And for Carol Kane, ibuprofen 325 milligrams, 2 tabs. Note writer, that's myself because I'm writing this, check the MAR after administration and then check on Donald and Carol after a half hour to see if the medication effect have provided, I should do medication effects have provided relief for their headaches. I realize headaches is one word. Both Donald and Carol stated their headaches were gone. PRN OTC was effective. This was documented by awards trainer on the MAR. So remember, on the MAR, if you give a PRN, you have to go back and check to make sure that it wasn't effective, and you have to go back in the MAR and document that it was effective, or that it wasn't effective, and what was the next step. Okay. Results of immediate measures. Both Donald and Carol had relief from their headaches. Pretty simple. Okay. Again, I get a full scope. I don't really have too many questions now because it's pretty clear. Okay. Maybe the guardian wants to, you wouldn't necessarily call a guardian for something that minor. I'm just using this as an example for training purposes, how you would document notification. So again, for a headache OTC PRN medication, we are not calling guardians for that type of an incident. Again, I'm just using this for a purpose of training, how to document, how to do notifications, how to document the incident description, apparent causes, immediate measures, and results of immediate measures. So that's how you fill this form out. Now remember, I said there could be a possible third. We're not going to play it out, but there's third or fourth, but I'm going to hit continue, and then I'm going to go back into data entry, and I'm going to show you what happened here so that you can enter more people. I'm going to go all the way down here. I'm going to hit continue. And so apparently I have left things blank. So externally filed agency name cannot be the same as local agency. Okay, I see. You could actually leave this blank then. That's what they're telling me. Because it's a basic D is written all over the place. So you can't use, and what they're saying is you can't use an internal or an external. So what you're going to do is you keep in the person's name. You don't have to write the agency if they're with us, and then the date. Obviously here, guardian, not JSCD. I'm going to go ahead and hit continue, and here I am. So it shows me. Now I want to take a minute and make sure this looks right, because if it doesn't look right, then I need to change it. So I need to make sure that Well, it automatically stamps I did it on this date and this time. Was I accurate with entering everything in? This is all telling me when I actually completed this. So I had to be mindful that my incident time is not after the time I've entered it, because obviously that's impossible, right? That's impossible. You can't write an incident for a future date. So you have incident date here, incident time, so 10:12, 9 o'clock that morning. I wrote the incident at 10:29 that morning after, which makes sense, right? Incident location. Make sure it's the location. They were in the kitchen when they told me they had a headache, or when they told the awards trainer staff that they were having a headache. PRN was administered. Who were the residents? Okay, if there's more, I'm going to show you how to do that. There were no witnesses, because obviously I didn't select any. Incident notification, who was notified? These are all the people that were notified and which date that they were notified. This is why I want you to use this section. I need to know what date everybody was notified. Incident description. I'm going to reread this to myself, preferably out loud, so that I know that it makes sense. Again, if you're involved in the incident, you know the ins and outs. You have to make sure that the reader is getting a full scope of what happened. The reader needs to be able to get a good concept of everything that happened, not leave critical information out. Okay, if the reader is asking questions and you're answering it, and they're asking more and more questions, and you're answering things that you didn't write in the incident, that's a good indication that you're not writing everything in there that needs to be written in. So just be mindful that you have to write everything in as it happened. It's really important that the reader gets a full concept of what's going on. It's clear, it's to the point. There's no colorful language. There's no projecting of emotions where it'll look like he was in pain. That would be projecting, right? But I said, he was complaining of a headache. People were complaining of a headache. Okay? Apparent causes. They had headaches. I don't know what may have caused the headache. If you know what a cause could be for a headache, you can write that too. Immediate measures taken within 24 hours. What did you do? Or what did JSCD do? Administer the PRN OTC medications as prescribed. Results of immediate measures. They received relief. Now, let's say again that I'm going to add more people. I'm now going to hit data entry. I'm going back into data entry. Once I click here, you notice here, I get more options. I can actually add more people now to this. So this is why you do not use other for anybody who's in the system. Does that make sense? I hope this part of this makes sense. And if you're getting that, so you're hitting OK or save, and then you're going back into data entry, and that's when you have these other individuals that you can add and select. Okay, if you've done, you hit continue, and then you're done. Now it also timestamps it again. Okay, at time 10:33 a.m. I just went and edited it and came back, so that time is now changed. JSCD, well, actually say Foothold Awards will stamp every time you're in the system, and every time you do anything, or if you edit something, it's going to stamp it, and it's going to indicate what time you've done it. So we'll know when the incident was first written, when it was edited. We're going to get all those notifications. Okay, and then if you're writing something that needs to be edited, you want to make sure you find that incident and you edit it. So let me show you how to do this. Incident index. Now we're here. You remember the date in which you wrote the incident. You're going to see the people, the participants, and the location. A good indication of a good indicator of which one is your incident. So if I needed to edit this, and I went into incident, and I saw my list, and I found mine, I click on it. And now I'm back in data entry mode, and I can edit it. Okay, and this is a training for incident reports.